Victims, aren't we all?
Yes. Uh, and welcome to another edition of the Spoiler Room. I have a small crew in the room with me tonight because we're going to sit down and talk a bit about the James Bond franchise. But specifically first, we're going to talk about Spectre, the latest James Bond film that hit the big screen this past weekend. And joining me in talking about our spy of spies, first off in the room tonight is the Bowtie Man himself, Mr. Paul Salzar. Hello, Paul.
Hello, I got my license to thrill, and I'm excited.
Oh, awesome. Haven't heard that one before. And then next to Paul is the one and only Tiger Power himself, Tony Estrada. Hello, Tony.
The name's Estrada. Tony Estrada. And I feel very honored to be here, so thanks for bringing me on, Mark. I'm ready for this.
We're glad to have you. Glad to have you. As we talk about Spectre, this is I think it's number, 23 in the Bond franchise? David got a lot of them. So here in Spectre, we have James Bond, who... It's 24. Oh. We have James Bond, and he is he's in trouble again. How many times can he be alone on his own? I'm sorry, guys. I gotta start this off right away because
that's part of the 00. You know, it's more than just zero, which is by yourself. It's 2 zeros. So it's twice as much zero.
I'm sorry, before we really get into it, it just throws me because during the movie I'm like, wait, his leader just said again, oh, he's on his own. And I'm like, well, wait, hasn't he been on his own since Casino Royale? I mean, he really, but anyway, so we have here Mr. James Bond, and of course he's kind of gone rogue a bit. He's doing his own thing, which of course MI does not like, and it comes at a bad time anyway because their 00 program is on the ropes. Basically, they take an impossible mission to eradicate the Syndicate, an international rogue organization called Spectre, who are highly skilled and committed to destroying... Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. That's Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
Yeah.
Oh. Sounded a lot similar to what we have here in Spectre. Where Spectre, Bond gets a cryptic message from his past that leads him to uncover a sinister organization. That while M battles political forces to keep the Secret Service alive, Bond peels back the layers of deceit to reveal the terrible truth behind this criminal organization called Spectre.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, folks, these two are very similar in films, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But one of the things that grabbed me right away, and Tony, I want to get your opinion, is I will say this opening segment, up until we get to the helicopter, I really liked. What did you think about this continuous tracking shot segment that they do to open this film, Tony?
I actually thought it was really impressive. I like the helicopter part too, but I did like how, after he left, typical James Bond form, he leaves behind a girl saying, "I'll be right back very quick." But the way he just grabs his gun, he's on top of the building, and how it's just one tracking shot without cutting. I thought it was very impressive how the movie handled that. I thought it looked really beautiful. It was a very clever way of how they used the camera, in my opinion. So I really have no complaints in terms of how the movie opened.
Well, that kind of, I think, sucks the audience in, wouldn't you say, Paul? What'd you think about this tracking shot harkening back to kind of Birdman?
Definitely. I was very impressed by it, and also it gave me the feeling of the first movie where they did a lot of the parkour stuff in that movie, which kind of interested me. This one had that tracking shot that kept going and going, and it was interesting because it was like, I'm going to invest myself in this character because they spent that time focusing on him, walking from building to building to building, and even with the turns, it was just like, wow, that's the theme, that's what they're going to do with this movie, is that they really want to focus on James Bond. Back to again your statement of James Bond is alone.
I mean, that seems like it's been a running theme in the last three James Bond films. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
But don't forget, gentlemen. At least he has the ladies to bang. Ding ding.
well, yeah, he always has the Bond ladies. But with this opening scene, so we get this great serious tracking shot, and we're into it with Bond. And yes, this is a spoiler room, folks, so we're gonna spoil the shit out of this. And then he gets to tracking whoever it is. He pulls out the whole microphone spy gadget thing, listens to what he needs to, and then he he shoots a suitcase in an apartment with explosives and blows up the room. But it doesn't just blow up the room. And here is the first moment where I went, "Where's Roger Moore?" Yes, folks, not only does he blow up the apartment room, but the entire apartment hotel complex falls to pieces in what resembled an act of terrorism. Paul, come on, man. I know they were going for serious, and I know at Skyfall they started leaning towards, hey, we're going to go back to kind of the old Bond feel, but this was the first time that it kind of took me a little out of it. What about
Really?
Yeah,
I liked it because it was so gritty, and it just felt, I half expected to have this like facial expression of, oh shit, I did that, and he'd just kind of walk away slowly.
And then let's not forget the fact that a couch saved him.
Yes, yes. But that was just a humorous thing, and again, it set a different tone, which is what I liked, and also too, I think this movie out of the last few are really trying to, like you said, get back to the old Bond type of films.
yeah, but the problem I had and with it is it felt like it was trying to do both.
Oh yeah.
And that was the problem I had with this. I'm like, okay, fine. If you want to go silly Roger Moore type of classic later on Thunderball, Moonraker type of angle with your Bond films, it's fine, but then go that full route. But this felt like it was trying to do both. And I guess that's the part that. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to start off right now, folks, saying that I enjoyed this film, and I think all three of us enjoyed this film. Tony, did you enjoy this film at least? We just get that.
Oh hell yeah, man! I had a really good time with this movie.
And Paul, you really enjoyed it too, correct?
Yes, better than Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation.
Oh,
really?
And I was just the opposite. But
Mm-hmm.
and for me, I just want to establish that now. We all did enjoy this film, but for me, that's why I wanted to do this tonight, is because I just had certain problems with it, and that was one of them, was the mixed tone in this film, to where it felt like it was still trying to be emo, brooding Bond, but at the same time, funny, haha, Moonraker, Jaws Bond.
Funny you should say Jaws, though, because the Batista character is very much like the New Age Jaws.
Yes, and we'll get to the villains in just a little bit. But yes, folks, so after Bond destroys and basically commits an act of terrorism of destroying an entire hotel to kill a few guys, we get to this.
It's an accident. Come on.
We get to this, this thing where he escapes and he's Bond, so he falls on a couch, as Tony said, which was humorous. I'm like, okay, that's very Bond-like and everything. And then we get to this helicopter, this helicopter fight, which, while fun, they're doing this over a massive crowd of people in Mexico, and even in the old Bonds, am I off on this? But even in the old Bonds, when he had kind of an exorbitant, big thing happen, there weren't millions of people witnessing it. Subtlety has kind of gone out the window for our favorite spy. Tony, what'd you think of this? The helicopter over the crowd, the helicopter flipping. I mean, he thinks it's Airwolf. Just I thought this segment went a little too long. What'd you think?
Honestly, I love the whole entire opening sequence from the tracking shot to the build to the apartment collapsing to the like I'll admit, yes, it was ridiculous, but in my opinion, it was ridiculous in a nice over the top way. Like you could tell out of all the Daniel Craig ones, this is the one that wanted you to have like the most fun. You could tell it wasn't trying to be as deep as the other ones. It just wanted you to have fun. So I didn't mind the ridiculousness and the with the helicopter, honestly. And I'm not gonna lie, I would actually be like how you say mind blown by whenever the helicopter would flip. Like I was kind of like, holy crap, that's really intense right there. Oh, holy crap. So I was kind of at the edge of my seat. So maybe that's why it didn't really take me out, because I was like at the edge of my seat at the way the helicopter would turn and how he would try to park the helicopter without killing anybody. That's right there in that area.
And Paul, how about you? I'm gonna be the old curmudgeon guy in this whole episode, aren't I?
You might be.
Again, I enjoyed it. I'm establishing that, okay?
The helicopter scene was okay, but it was the lead up to that was to me a little bit long, where they were kind of going in through the crowd. It was like, wow, they just had that long establishing, continuous scene shot of him. They didn't really need them. They should have just went straight to the helicopter. I would have been happy with that. The action was great, and I do think they really did need to have that. Everybody needed to see it because, again, this was that establishing that the 00 program is definitely very, very, very close to an act of terrorism by itself. You get these like guys that have licenses to do whatever they want, however they needed to do it. And this was to show the consequences of it. Thousands of people could die just because one guy accidentally, slammed a helicopter into the ground if he messed up.
But he didn't, because he's Bond.
He's Bond,
and he flies off. And I still, this parallels between this and Rogue Nation were so eerie, because Bond gets back and he finds out 007 program is in jeopardy from this new information program. They're going to cancel the 00 program for this new basically spy department. They're combining, what was it, MI5 and 6?
Yep.
And so they're combining these two, and they've got this huge new building that's going to be this huge information collector, which I think is a worse act of terrorism than somebody.
Agreed.
I mean, that's what got me on this, is that they were saying the 00 program was an act of terrorism because they went out and killed individuals. But they say, but it's okay to collect every single bit of information on every single person around the world and use that. I'm like, that could be another form of terrorism, couldn't it, Paul?
Yes, the whole privacy thing. But I think also, like, especially in the London has got basically the entire city is just covered with cameras. So I think people there are used to the idea of being watched, whereas we are like, man, if there was a camera outside my door, I would be like, But if it was a somebody doing a selfie, I'd be right in there, photobombing. But it's just weird when it's somebody else that you're not expecting doing it. It feels wrong. But when we're doing it ourselves, it's okay. And that's what I thought this whole program was a little bit going over to the edge, where they were basically gathering every bit of information that they can. I'm sure they took social media into it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You're sure they did, but I mean, it also involved 8 or 9 different countries. We weren't just talking about London here. The whole idea, folks, behind this is that our new guy on the scene who's taking over, who's called C, by the way, by Bond, and he implies C means something rather inappropriate. Uh, but C, played by Andrew Scott, is the head of this new department. And, I'm sorry, maybe I've watched too many films, but Paul, come on. You didn't realize, you didn't realize right away that he was part of Spectre.
Oh God, exactly. I was like,
It was
it would have
honestly,
surprised me if M was actually. Honestly, I was looking for that, but yeah, it was like right away. Okay, yeah, he's already bad guy. Marked there. They should have called him Spectre, just or an S. They should just called him S.
What about
it was kind of obvious from the start.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they tried to make it like a big reveal, and I'm like, no.
No.
When you're talking about a guy who's adamant about shutting down the Double O project and collecting information from 8 different countries all into one building, yeah, he's Spectre. I mean, well, I don't think it helped either, though. I don't get me wrong. I really enjoy when Andrew Scott plays these characters because he really does a good job. But at the same time, they cast Andrew Scott. So I mean, the guy already looks like he's a bad guy. You just so yeah. I didn't quite buy into the whole reveal. I'm like, you're just realizing this now, Bond? Really? But so we get C who's trying to shut down the Double O project, and we do still have our old school formula back now though. We have Moneypenny who's reluctantly helping James, and
Yay.
we have M who's reluctantly helping James,
And Q.
and Q who is reluctantly helping James.
Not the Judy Dench M, the Ralph Fiennes M.
Yes, the Ralph Fiennes M. Though I did think it was cool that they did, and that's one of the things I wanted to bring up next is this felt like as if Daniel Craig wanted to leave Bond after this film.
Oh
They
man.
were fine with it because it really felt like they were trying to bring everything full circle with this film, and even try to make Quantum of Solace palatable by connecting it with this one by having an old villain back.
Yeah.
What do you think about them basically? Because Bond films normally aren't all tied together. They're for the most part standalone films. They're loosely, but this one really made it so yeah they're all together. Tony, what do you think about that? Of basically this film is saying oh all these films were connected.
I thought that was really cool, and it took me by surprise when it was Spectre, like the organization, this whole time that was behind the events of Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and Skyfall.
Quantum Asylum, I like that one.
Freudian slip.
You could give me the title credit, Mark.
I'll do that. We'll do that. But Quantum Asylum, yeah, Skyfall and all those.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I thought it was really clever for the movie to do that. And since Daniel Craig, basically, he doesn't want to do any more of these, if Spectre really is the last installment in the Daniel Craig James Bond films, I say it's a really good conclusion because of how this movie wrapped up everything. Of course, would I like to see one more? Yeah, but if they don't, I say Spectre is like a nice conclusion of that. So I think I'm glad that they went with that route in case they don't make another one of these. Since Daniel Craig, he basically doesn't want to be any more part of this anymore.
Yeah. What about you, Paul? I mean, we're used to Bonds kind of being standalone, but with similar elements, kind of like a Final Fantasy game. So, what do you think about them tying them all together? The last 4 films.
I love that sort of stuff. I love the little like homages to the past and little things about the histories of the franchises. That's why I actually enjoyed this film better than Mission Impossible. It's because the fact that they did tie in all of these things. I think they did a wonderful job, and I hope that we do eventually, as we go through this discussion, talk about some of those tie-ins to the past as well, because that was the thing that really elevated this movie over Casino Royale and all the other ones. It was like, okay, this is the movie that I expected to get while watching it. This is like my reward for sticking with the Bond series.
Yeah, but I mean, it does kind of go against the formula, though,
It
because
does.
all supposed to be separate. So yeah, it is cool that they were doing something different on one hand, and again, as I mentioned, we'll go into how they tie it in. One of the big tie-ins, and one of the things that I thought was interesting is they're trying to make up for Quantum of Solace. You can tell because they bring back Mr. White, but
Yay.
they bring him back in an interesting way, wouldn't you say, Paul?
Yes, very, very well done to tie in his daughter kind of into it, and it is good because I think the Mr. White character does appear out of all the villains, he appears kind of like the most in it, and it's the thread that ties everything together, except for of course our loner, Mr. Bond.
Oh, well, yeah, because he's on his own again.
Yes.
Tony, what'd you think about them bringing back Mr. White? One of the first of a couple of things they've brought back from the other Bond films.
I thought it was very cool because, yeah, Quantum of Solace, that, in my opinion, of course, that one wasn't too great, but like you said, they were kind of making up for Quantum of Solace, so I thought it was interesting for the movie to just kind of bring him back, like, oh, look, there's Mr. White. And I actually thought he was a very interesting character in Quantum of Solace, so to actually see him back in Spectre, which I actually was not expecting at all, it was kind of a nice breath of fresh air.
It was a breath of fresh air, and I really enjoyed the fact that they kind of brought him back, and I liked what they did with his character too. How he was ill, he was actually this dying guy, so he didn't really give a rat's ass about anything anymore. Though,
Fitting of his nickname, the Pale King.
yes, the Pale King. The only problem is this is one of the parts where suddenly we're going back to Casino Royale Bond
Yeah.
from Goofy Bond. This is where it takes one of the leaps back to serious Bond because there's a major. Mr. White goes out in a very rather cold and brutal way.
Oh, god damn.
And that's one of the dark moments of this film, which, again, it's one of those things where they're trying. It felt to me like they were trying to tread both sides, and I guess that didn't that bugged me just a little. It didn't take my away from my enjoyment of it, but it just was like, oh, we're back to serious now. Okay, no, wait, now we're back to Goofy because he's talking to Moneypenny, who's with her boyfriend in his bed, and he's trying to track down, Mr. White's daughter, who is one of the Bond girls that are in here. Besides, we have Moneypenny, played fantastically, I thought, by Naomi Harris. I really
Definitely.
liked her.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really liked her performance in here. But we have who was it?
Monica Bellucci.
Yes, we have Monica Bellucci in here as the wife of the guy Bond killed.
By dropping a building on him. No.
Dropping a building on him. I mean, he wanted to make sure he was dead.
And they still make out. God damn it.
Because he's Bond. He's Bond. He's the only one that can get away with making out and taking to bed the guy who he killed's wife.
True that.
You don't see Ethan Hunt doing that. No way.
True, you do not see Ethan Hunt doing that. But I thought it was great that they got Monica Bella. Thank you, Bellucci, in here, just because she was. All the Bond girls usually are younger girls, which makes Bond a lecherous old man. So the fact that they made her actually kind of his age, or a little bit older than him, actually, I thought it was cool to have her as a Bond girl. What did you think of her character, Tony?
The blonde one?
No, Monica Bellucci, the brunette, the older woman, the wife of the.
Oh, the wife. For the small screen time she had, I thought she was pretty good. I felt like the movie just kind of shoehorned her in there just so it could be like another, oh look, here's your hot woman to make out, James Bond. But so I would say maybe that. So that is one of my issues. It was a small issue though, but for what she had, I did think she did a pretty good job.
Well, she does have that great scene though, where she's walking through the house with the opera plane, knowing that she's going to die,
Oh yeah.
be killed. I really liked how that played out. What about you, Paul, and this character? I mean, I would have liked to see more screen time with her character.
I definitely would have as well, and I agree. I love that scene where she's walking through the house, and then she's just like right at the base of the swimming pool. She was like, "Oh, they're gonna shoot me," and she hears the gunshot, and she's still alive. And of course, you turn and
It's
there's Mr. Bond again.
there's
Yep.
Daniel Craig not showing his abs yet, but he will eventually.
Yeah, he shows a lot more. He shows his assets definitely.
He does. He does. So after Bond conquers this woman, uh,
Ouch.
he moves on to the daughter. Is that was Lita Saido, right? Madeline Swan
Yeah,
uh,
Madeline,
was
Dr.
Mr.
Swan,
White's
daughter.
daughter, and so she's the main Bond girl that follows Bond pretty much through the rest of the film. And I liked her character. I was worried at first when we first met her that she wasn't going to be a strong character, didn't you, Paul? But later we see that she is actually kind of a badass.
Yeah, and I appreciated that a lot. But I also knew going in because of some of her statements that she's not going to be your typical James type Bond girl. So
Right.
I kind of expected her to be a little bit different, but I also didn't expect her to be the type of person that she was. You know, she was kind of the doctor at first, and it's like, well, she very much rejects James early on in the film, and then and it slowly kind of develops into the relationship, which I thought was kind of fitting to have, Bond basically kind of falling in love with the daughter of basically a villain that he had been dealing with. So
Yeah.
it was enjoyable.
What did you think about Madeline Swan there, Tony?
I really enjoyed her at first. I thought, like what you said, I thought she was going to be like your typical Bond girl, but I like how as this film was slowly progressing, she actually was a badass and she actually did things to help out James Bond, like with what Christoph Waltz was doing, like when he was drilling James Bond. She was doing that mission with the watch that explodes
Hmm.
to like help him out, and I felt like she was strong. I did feel like their romance was kind of rushed when it started, but then as the film was going on, I was actually buying into the fact that they were both in love, and I felt like she was more of a stronger character as she went on. So I think overall, I really did enjoy her.
See, and for me, I felt the emotion from her side, but I like Daniel Craig. Don't get me wrong, but it felt like he showed one emotion through this entire film. I don't
He's a
know.
prick.
I did. They said, "Oh, he's in love with her," and for a minute, I'm like, "Wait, he is?" I'm like, "Yeah, they got busy on the train, and she first played hard to get, but that happens to Bond in every film, just about. He he was actually this one's a little bit different. I'm like, I guess I didn't feel that from Craig's side too much, and maybe it was part of the direction or the way he was handling the character or trying to be the stone cold Bond. But I felt, with Sean Connery, you feel at least a little bit more emotion. He emoted at least a little bit more. I don't know. In this one, Craig just felt like he had one gear, and that was cold face.
But he has to show that he still kind of remembers Vespa and was still kind of Joneses for her.
Well, yeah, I mean, he finds a videotape, and it's like he found the sex tape or something. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh crap, I gotta hide Vespa." I'm like, "The girl's not gonna know who Vespa." I'm like, "Why are you even?" But so I liked the fact that Swan did not fall into James's hands right away. I dug the whole scene in the hotel where where they found the secret room.
Mhm.
That felt really spy-like. I'm like, okay, this is really cool, So that was one of the things I really enjoyed about it as well. Is they did make it so Bond actually had to find things
Yeah.
and discover things. Well, come on, because I mean, really, in some of these things, they kind of just fall in his lap, and
Yeah.
he's there. But here, he's actually finding secret rooms and actually deducting and
Follow the
using.
mouse.
Yeah, huh?
Follow the mouse.
Yeah, I mean, I know people are going to say, "Oh, he always does that." I'm like, not as much in the recent ones, though, as in this one. He's mostly chasing just people. Here, he was actually like
Detecting. Yeah.
detecting. Yeah,
Yeah.
doing spy things. Am I off on that? Would you say that he was probably doing more spy things in this one than he has kind of in the last couple, to where he mostly was chasing? I mean, am I wrong on that?
No, no, not at all. I totally agree with you. He definitely. It showed that Bond is also smart. He doesn't have to think with his fists or his gun or
Yes,
his other gun.
or his other gun.
But we were talking about how strong Swan was.
Yeah.
They still did manage to make her the damsel in distress, though.
I was just going to mention that, Tony. Here we have Swan, completely strong and smart, and almost seemed to be almost smarter than Bond in some ways, until she didn't need to be, and she's suddenly the girl tied up in the building that's going to blow up. What'd you think of that? Did you think that was a little bit odd to do to her character?
Excuse me. Yeah, I was watching this movie going, oh wow, she's actually very smart, and she's very strong. But then when you get to the climax, she's like a damsel in distress, and I'm like, huh, well, okay then. I still like you, but weird choice to do for a climax of a James Bond movie.
Well, I mean, for me, in all honesty, I would have expected them to grab like Moneypenny.
Yeah.
Moneypenny would have made more sense as far as how they wrote the characters.
Or even Q with the whole ski lift thing. I was thinking that's what they were gonna do, but they didn't.
Well, no, they didn't, because they had to work the romance thing of him being in love, and this is the problem I have not only in this film, but we've seen this in recent modern films. I brought it up before, where they feel like they need to put some kind of romantic link between the good guy and a girl, because it's hard for people to fathom that the good guy would save someone because he's the good guy.
Because he's the good guy. Because it's his job.
I mean, am I wrong on that? But it just seems like it. Not only in this film, but in recent, it's like, well, nope, they've got to be in love so that way he can, when he saves her at the end, you see his motivation. I'm like, he's the good guy. Wouldn't you save just about anyone in that building, Paul?
Yes. It would have been funny though. It would have been like if he were just to walk out and leave, and be like, Blofeld wanted me to do this, so I'm just going to do it. I don't even know if she's in this building. He hints at it.
It's M? Oh, it's M? Ah. Oh, yeah. I'm just going to walk out. Yeah, we'll watch the building blow up. Which would you say is then a bit of a symbology as well? Them blowing up the already kind of condemned old MI building, them trying to maybe do the metaphor of this is the last remnants of the Casino Royale emo brooding Bond series, wouldn't you say, Tony? That's kind of the last remnant of the other films.
Yeah, I would say so. And I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks this, but when that building was exploding at the end, it kind of reminded me of that building explosion scene near the beginning of Skyfall. Am I the only one that kind of thought about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it was. Well, it was the same building, so...
yeah.
But and then we've got the villains, which we mentioned Mr. White, who wasn't really a villain in this as much as a pawn. But then we have we're going to talk first about him real quick, Mr. Hinks.
Yeah.
Is it played by Bautista, who I liked him. I kind of he felt like he was a bit Jaws.
Yeah.
And he was also a bit what's his name with the hat? Odd Jobs.
Odd Jobs, yeah.
What'd you think of Batista's bad guy, Tony?
I did like him for what he was given, but one of my issues with this movie was actually how underused he was, how he was just there just to go track down James Bond and fight him, and then it's all like he just goes all out by having his neck tied up and getting out of that train. And it's all like Dave Bautista, he's a talented guy. Like, look what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was actually excited to see what he could do. But the fact that he was just the dude to go fight James Bond and not really talk, I felt like they could have done more with the character. I did still like him. You know, he's still a badass. He's big and buff, but I just wish they did more with his character.
Yeah, I kind of did too, because the way they built him up when he walks in the room when Bond tracks down Spectre, which was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Like, for a secret organization, Bond found you fairly quick, man. You know,
They wanted to be found, though.
well, I know they wanted to be found. I got that angle real quick, but I still thought it was funny that,
It was.
wow, Bond just kind of walked right up to your doorstep. Said, hey.
Mickey Mouse did.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse did.
Hey, James Bond, you want to fight with Mickey Mouse, boy?
But I mean, they establish him fairly quick as this badass, but we really don't see him a whole lot, do we, Paul? Did you feel that he was kind of underutilized for the way they built him up?
Yes, in truthfulness, yes. But again, I looked at him as being the Jaws replacement, and to me, that he performed that role perfectly, and you know. That's what. Oh, but before I forget, I wanted to add to your idea of the symbolism with the buildings. I just wanted to note that the new building was completely with all the windows see-through, and
Yes.
I thought that was a neat bit of symbolism right there about the new organization, and you know.
Full transparency.
Exactly.
And yeah, I thought that was interesting as well that they did that. You know, and the other links besides them blowing up the building and having Mr. White come back, we also get them mentioning the original Bond car, which is on blocks.
Oh, yes.
You know what I was kind of hoping for, the angle they took when there's that scene in there where he's not getting any gadget but a watch that actually just tells time, which I thought was hilarious. I was hoping Bond would say, well, since I'm on high, they've got me kind of suspended and I'm on my own again. Why don't I come in and work on the car? I would have loved that.
Oh, that would have been great.
That would have been awesome.
Have Bond the Grease Monkey in there. I was just hoping for that a little bit, like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. But no, we don't get Bond the Grease Monkey. We get Bond the guy on his own.
With one emotion.
With one emotion.
He's like the car. He has only one gear.
That's true. He does. But after all this, he does track down Spectre, and we get to see Christoph Waltz. And yeah, what'd you think, Paul, of Christoph Waltz's how they cut around to his name being Blofeld? What'd you think about his character in general? Do you think he was maybe a little underwhelming?
Honestly, no, because
No?
I was not prepared for the reveal. I had not even thought of that because of all the other things that were happening in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think, oh, they're gonna go there. But I should have known because they showed the cat.
I was going to say, they showed the cat. You should have known they were.
I know, but then afterwards when they did the whole facial thing, he looked like Donald Pleasance.
Yes.
I thought that was just. I was like, oh my God, thank you. So no, I didn't think he was underwhelming at all because I was totally blown away by him.
Oh, see, and I knew it was coming. So,
oh, did you?
Yeah, unfortunately, the way I had heard the casting going,
no.
And I think I ran across it by accident, so I kind of knew where they were going with it, and it was just affirmed when they showed the cat. For me, so I mean, don't get me wrong, I thought Waltz played it beautifully. And it actually kind of made me sad thinking this might be Craig's last one because I liked the scenes between these two. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Tony, the way Craig and Waltz played off each other?
I thought they played off each other very well. Of course, Walt sadly didn't have enough screen time, but for the screen time they did have, I thought they had a very interesting back and forth going for it. And Christoph Waltz, I, you know, I was kind of underwhelmed on how the movie used him because they were like building him up to be like this big villain, and for a villain, he wasn't really in this movie that much. Just like one time and somewhere in the second act, and then like he shows up more often, like towards the end. So I did think Waltz portrayed him well, but I did wish the movie used him better for someone that's this big villain.
You were hoping for a little more Blofeld, and
Yeah.
I was too. Though I do remembering to the past Bonds, Blofeld, doesn't get a huge lot of screen time usually either. He's a guy in the shadows, so
Well, in the first
Yeah.
two movies, all you'd see is his hand petting the
yeah,
cat.
yeah, and so and I guess that is one of the series of Bond stories where there was kind of a link between them, though it was still a lot more loose than the way the Craig movies have played out. I think. But for me, yeah, I like Waltz. I love Waltz in almost everything he does, and Christoph here as Blofeld. I loved that reveal because I kind of knew it was coming. I was wondering how they were going to do it, um, and yeah, I liked his whole character. I wanted to see more, and I hope we do get to see more,
Yes.
even if Craig isn't the Bond. Hopefully they do. If Craig doesn't come back, which I think he has signed on for another film, I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
have to look it up. I do believe he did sign on for one more, so hopefully that means we get more Waltz Craig scenes because those were my favorite scenes in this
Agreed.
film. On the whole, everything comes to the end. Waltz gets his eye scarred, and so he is the true Blofeld. Though we still, he's gonna need a new cat because they blew up the old cat. So it does make me kind of look forward seeing where they're going to take that character because I really enjoyed his character there and how he really got into it. Uh, but I don't know. Do you think a different? Do you hope they don't do like they did with was it Doctor No or whatever, where they drop Blofeld into a smokestack because we've got a new Bond, kind of like they did between was it Roger Moore and when he drops, Blofeld, he's like, "I'm Bond. I'm ending this now."
Yeah.
I hope they don't do that for the next one. Do you think Waltz may show up for at least one or two more Bond films, Tony?
I would really hope so. Like, even if Daniel Craig doesn't show up, I would still hope they would use his character in a way where they can explore him more. Because, like I said, for the screen time he had in this film, his character was really intense and he was very interesting. He was intriguing. So I hope if they do make another one, whether it's with Daniel Craig or no Daniel Craig, they could still explore more into his character arc.
What about you, Paul? More Blofeld, regardless of which Bond we get.
I honestly would love to see that, but I think that they're because of how encapsulated they wanted to make this Bond series. I think that he's forever going to be associated to this, the Daniel Craig, you know,
Hmm.
villains, and I think that's what they're going to do is they're just going to reinvent Bond every time with the new actor, with new characters that'll tie in, very much like comic books do.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it does feel like they're kind of taking the comic book way, which leads me to our final topic for this evening that I just wanted to drop in the last 10, 15 minutes that I'd like to have the show go tonight is
He's
just
dropping
really
a building. Ah.
I'm not dropping the building, but I do want to drop the question, and I want to get Tony's impression first on this. Is we've got what 24 films now of Bond, and with the new character Blofeld, they kind of got a little bit of life into it. But do you think Bond needs to take a little bit of a break for a while, or do you think they should just keep cranking these out still? Because the Bond character is kind of old school, misogynistic, womanizer type guy, and as our culture gets more and more aware and more trying to not be quite so offensive, do you think Bond needs to be retired or that they maybe need to do a complete overhaul of his character?
Like just retire him forever, or just retire him for a while?
For a while at least, or reapproach him, or forever. Do you think Bond is? Are we starting to retread old territory, bringing Blofeld back in that? And should Bond be eliminated? What do you think? Do you think Bond should be around? Should he get changed, or should he kind of just get retired forever?
Well, for me, of course, if they do decide to make one more Daniel Craig movie, they should have that. And then I would say once they're done with the movies with Daniel Craig, if there is one more, of course, then maybe take like a little bit of a break. Maybe say take at least a good, I'm gonna say maybe like a good 6 or 8 years of taking a break from Bond, and then from there, just kind of either bring the franchise back with a new Bond, or maybe kind of reboot it in a way
Hmm.
after they make that kind of hiatus.
Sure.
It's kind of hard to tell because we have like what 6 different Bonds now, and each of them, yeah, it kind of feels like a reboot with each of those movies. So it's kind of hard to say, well, whether this franchise should be the one that ends, or if, like there's a reboot, because they always feel like reboots to me every time they get a new James Bond to come around.
Yeah, but he's still a similar character in his ways and his methods and his things. His kind of Cold War ways. What about you, Paul? Do you think that the character needs to be retired? Does he need to get an overhaul or a break? Do you think he still kind of has a place? Or
As a fan of Doctor Who, I
Mhm.
think that they can continue with that type of format of rebooting with a new character, a new person takes it on, and they restart over. And I think that the Daniel Craig did a really good job of proving that that's what they could do, because when he first came on, they were discussing about, is Bond really dead? What can they do with this kind of old thing? Because at that time, Cold War was really much, out of people's minds at that time. It's like, oh, it's all over with. And they just proved that they could do an interesting story with this, and bring it back to the old elements and stuff like that. Of course, they probably will have a much different James Bond, but if you look at all the James Bonds, they are kind of a reflection of the era in which they were filmed
Mhm.
in. And then James Bond kind of changes along with it. And of course, everybody has their favorite Bond, usually the one that they grew up with. So I think that they can continue this franchise. They can just get a new James Bond. I'm hoping that they pick someone with of different ethnicity, and play around with that a bit.
Yeah.
More reflective of what England is like now.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people were, and I was like all for it. I'm like, sign me up. Is Idris Elba
Yeah.
playing Bond? Personally, I'd love that.
It'd
I,
be just
I,
really
I,
different style, different coolness.
I love his character anyway. But yeah, I do think that Bond will need an overhaul a bit. I mean, he can still be the womanizer of such and that, but not. I just approach it a little bit differently, I think, which they have kind of done with the Daniel Craig, like you said. I would say that a number of the Bond women in the Craig movies have been stronger until the plot called for otherwise,
Hmm.
uh, was stronger than some of the previous Bond women. But even the other previous Bond women have been kind of strong characters as well. So I don't know. I just think his character needs a little bit of a change, which Craig is starting to show, but he still feels like old school Bond in a lot of ways, and it feels like the culture or whatever is passing him up, so to speak.
But that was kind of a running theme in his series, was okay, this Bond is supposed to deal with the modern age, and I think now they can get over that because the next one will be of that age.
Right.
So
As
Yeah.
long as I think, as long as they're able to take an approach that can make the franchise still continue to be like refreshing, then I think this franchise is in good hands for a very long time.
Although you do have competition with Mission Impossible franchise, which actually got better over its age. So,
Oh yeah.
they should just
though
have Moneypenny series. That would be fun.
Moneypenny would be awesome.
Yep.
I'd love to see a movie that involves Moneypenny and Bond is just a secondary character.
That would be cool.
That
I'm
would.
not gonna lie. After seeing The Man from Uncle, I think
Mhm.
Henry Cavill could be a good James Bond.
Hmm.
Cavill might make it as a Bond. The only Bond that nobody ever likes is Timothy Dalton. So.
Which he's kind of probably truer to the Bond in the books, which is funny.
Yeah, because when he came out, he was supposed to be a little bit truer to the original Bond in the books, and no one liked it.
Nobody liked him because nobody read the books.
Words burn, man. Words burn.
Words burn. That's a vampire. It's like ah.
So okay, so I think we got a kind of different slight opinions here, but I think in general we agree that the Bond franchise is still alive. That they've actually kind of taken it out of its Dark Knight feel, if you will, especially with this film. And I'm kind of hoping for even a little lesser, darker moments than they had in this one. Uh, the tone in it was a little bit more consistent. I thought overall, and we'll get our final thoughts from everybody here for Spectre. Is for me, I think it was very entertaining. Loved Waltz and Craig together. I loved a lot of parts to it. I do think it was executed a little bit clunky as far as some of the pacing, maybe, on it. Visually, it was fantastic, and overall, I would say, yeah, it was an entertaining film. I wasn't like blown away like some people were with this film, but I thought it was decent. Though I will say I enjoyed Mission Impossible Rogue Nation a bit more than this one. But then again, it could be because Bond was on his own. Uh,
Yeah.
Paul, what about you? Final thoughts with Spectre?
I definitely enjoyed this film. I enjoy things that have bookends, and this to me felt like a bookend. I honestly thought that this was going to be Daniel Craig's last Bond. It just felt like that, and so this was. I thought it was a fitting story for that idea. It was like, okay, we've given you these other stories, and now here's again your reward for sticking with those movies. This is the film that ties it all together, and we're going to test your memory on all these things. Oh, do you remember this? Did you remember this? And those type of things, those type of movie type of things always excite me, probably more so than the actual plot and characters of a film. So that's why this film really scores a little bit higher on my scale.
Awesome. And Tony, what about you? Your final thoughts here with Spectre?
Overall, I had a really good time with Spectre. I think it's a very solid James Bond movie. Really great action sequences. Daniel Craig is still great as James Bond. Really like the cast behind it. Christoph Waltz, even if he was underused, I still really love the moments he was in. It's not my favorite. I think Skyfall is still my favorite in terms of the Daniel Craig James Bond movies, but it was still a very well done movie. I came out of the theater with a big smile on my face, and I can't wait to buy this movie on DVD and Blu-ray when it comes out. So yeah, Skyfall, good movie. I mean, not Skyfall, Spectre.
Well, Skyfall's a good movie too. Yeah.
Quantum Asylum.
Sorry, I'm drinking too much Jamaica here. But yes, Spectre, really good movie, and if you haven't seen it, I would recommend it.
Nice. And for me, yes, I would recommend it too. It is a spectacle. It is a fun film. I did have just a few issues with it, but overall, I thought it was an entertaining film as well. I felt like I got my money's worth out of it. I didn't feel disappointed in it. I just think, I would have liked a little bit more consistent, I think, in the tone of it, but that's just me. But so there you go, folks. Those are our thoughts on Spectre and Bond. James Bond. It is rumored that Craig will be back for Bond 25, but I don't think it's been confirmed at all. And considering the one interview, though he claims it was taken out of context, I think Craig might just be done with Bond. So, you know what? I want to wrap it up, but yeah, let's go really quick with this group because we've got a small group here. Who would you want to be the next Bond? Hands down, yes, make this guy the next Bond. Tony, go ahead. Who would you like to be the next Bond?
As I said earlier, Henry Cavill, but then I also do see what you mentioned, Mark, Idris Elba. I think it would be cool to see how Idris Elba would take on the role. So I would say, as of right now, probably between Elba or Henry Cavill to take the role of James Bond.
Nice. And Paul, you, sir?
Justin Bieber. No, just kidding.
Oh, dear God.
Can you imagine Justin Bieber just holding the gun?
This is where we ban Paul from the podcast. I have that power here. No,
this is Justin Bieber. The name's Bieber. Babe, Justin Bieber.
Dude, God.
Honestly, I would if not Idris Elba or someone, I would like somebody that is not known. I just honestly would
nice.
think somebody just out of the blue kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be cool if they got someone who hasn't been quite established, or
to give that person a chance.
Not quite as well known, would be great as well. Though nowadays we know very few studios will take any chance on no name anymore, and I feel bad for actors and actresses out there now who might not have just the right agent, because now with any of these franchises, unlike, I will say, back in my day, the earlier ages or whatever, I mean, yeah, everybody gets their start somewhere, but there were more chances taken, I think, in earlier films 20 years ago or 30 years ago than there are now. I mean, am I off on that? Would you say that they don't take quite as many chances with new actors now on bigger films? Occasionally you see it, but it's a lot more rare, at least it feels like to me. What about you, Paul?
I agree with you.
Yeah. So, I think for me, I'd like to see Idris Elba be in it. I think he'd be really cool. Tom Hardy's in everything, so we'll just leave Tom Hardy.
Yeah, I know. I have my friends saying Tom Hardy. I'm like, you guys, I love Tom Hardy, but he's in everything. But he's fucking Tom Hardy, Tony.
It's good. How about Colin Firth? What do you think about him?
Colin Firth, there you go. I mean, after seeing him in
Kingsman
and seeing how he can be not so serious.
Yes.
I think Colin Firth would be great, because Colin Firth could be the not quite so womanizing Bond, which I'm sure would disappoint a lot of people, but I think he could play it, and you could sell it with his character as being the nicer Bond.
There you go.
I think also after seeing that movie Spy, I think maybe Jude Law could be another good one.
Oh, yeah.
Jude Law would be interesting to see in that role. Though I think with Jude Law, his pedigree and such for films that he does, even though it is good films, I think he'd be a harder sell than Colin Firth.
Yeah.
Though I think it'd be a bold move. It'd be definitely a step above Dalton. No offense to Timothy Dalton, but
they're gonna cast Dave Bautista. Come on. He's
Bond,
former villain, now Bond.
Bond. He doesn't say anything. He just he presents. He punches people, breaks their neck, or just gives them a card that says Bond, James Bond on it. It says Bond, James Bond. He just gives them cards. And there you go. So I think that note, we're going to end it for this evening. Gentlemen, real quick, Paul, if our new listeners, we have any there, where can they find you at?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and WordPress at Forsaken Film Reviews.
Fantastic. And Mr. Estrada, Tiger Power, go, sir.
Okay, youtube.com/22tigerdude, facebook.com/22tigerdude, twitter.com/tigerdude22, moviepilot.com/tigerdude22, and Instagram at 22tigerdude.
Wow, you are just everywhere, aren't you?
He's
everywhere. He's everywhere you want to be.
Even when you're sleeping or taking a shower. I'm just kidding.
Wow. Whoa. Okay, Tony, you're getting a little creepy now. Suddenly, a whole bunch of restraining orders were issued for Mr. Tiger Power.
The
Uh,
Jamaica gets to me, man.
and and before I close it out here, real quick, I just want to say that we do have a page on Special Mark Productions where you can find all of our episodes archived as well as the newest episode. You can also find us on iTunes. But you can have a say. Yes, you listeners out there right now, go to specialmarkproductions.com. There's a link at the very top for the Big 4-0 special voting. And that's where you get to vote for the films that we are going to review for our next special series next year. This year, we're wrapping up our 25th anniversary series with 2 episodes to go in that series. And next year, we're going to be doing 40th anniversary. That's right, films from 1976. And you get to decide which films we're going to talk about on those special episodes for the year. So go to Special Mark Productions, click the link at the top, and please let your voice be heard. We would love to see what films you'd like us to talk about next year. And that's at specialmarkproductions.com. You can also reach us on the Twitter at Movie Maniac 3D or on Spoiler Room PDCS, and email us as always at spoilerroom.smp@gmail.com. Because here in the spoiler room, the conversation is fresh, but we do spoil the movies. It's time to go get myself a martini. Dirty.